Hi, Scott Orlin with CINEMA-Magazin, Beverly Hills, California. How much more quintessential could it be than with one of the top British actors we have right here, Benedict Cumberbatch. I love Imitation Game. I thought it was fascinating for anybody who's a history buff. How much did you know about the whole Enigma scenario?
A little, but it's the most extraordinary story, and the more you excavate it and the people that were involved, the deeper and more incredible it becomes. I mean, these men and women from incredibly varied backgrounds. There were artists and musicians and actors, and then the more sort of go-to lateral thinkers in the fields of science and mathematics and other areas of those expertise came together in these small huts in the southeast of England, a place called Bletchley Park. And under the cover story of working in a radio factory, they were basically setting about taking the transmissions that anybody could pick up with the radio of German communication and trying to figure out with an Enigma machine what it was that they were actually putting out there, what the Germans were saying, what they were instructing their troops, their Air Force and their Navy to do around the world. And they were really up against it. This was the extraordinary thing I learned, that Britain was really starving. It was a siege situation almost. We were surrounded. The occupation of Europe was total apart from us, and an invasion of Britain seemed to be imminent.
Are you good with technology, computers? Because when you see the movie, he builds actually, I think it's the first big computer that was ever, the first real computer that was ever made.
It sort of is. I mean, that's simplifying it a bit, but it kind of is. I couldn't begin to. The art department were amazing, and what they did was recreate this incredible machine that worked, that moved, that had parts and components that I could either fix or attach or sort of have an interaction with. And also the schematics, the actual design for the computer, they'd drawn out, and I copied that, which gives you a sort of sense memory and some possession of the building of this incredible thing. But you know, sadly, it's not a Mike Leigh film, and I think if it had been, I may well be able to stand here now and say, yes, I did actually build that machine. But time was a little bit pressured, so I didn't have the time to learn. But incredible bit of kit.
And I think what's amazing about this movie is not only the historical perspective, but also the socialization of it, in a sense. Because today we live at a time where we wouldn't even think, just because somebody was of a particular persuasion, how they would be affected. How much of that do you feel is going to be topic of conversation?
I think a lot. You know, his sexuality was something that he was punished for in the early 50s, and you know, he was robbed of his dignity and of his body and his mind through being given state-sanctioned chemical castration through weekly estrogen injections. And even saying those words, it just feels sort of barbaric and devoid of anything democratic or liberal or understanding and tolerant. You know, the very democracy he'd saved, that was how they rewarded him, by punishing him for his sexuality. In the context of the era, there was a lot of fear that homosexual men in particular were a fertile ground for spies. Some of the Cambridge spies were homosexual, and there was a huge communist threat after the defeat of Nazism after the Second World War. So came from a paranoid, fearful position. But sadly, you know, I don't see this just as a history film or a sociological study of what happened then. We still see it now, when nationalism rises in any corner of the globe, and we've seen it very recently in parts of Europe and the Middle East, that homosexual men are again scapegoated as being a minority, blamed for the moral degradation or ills of a totalitarian state that wants to control its citizens. And you know, if only it was an attitude that had been consigned to the history books with this very sad tale, but unfortunately it's as important to realise this injustice and prejudice still exists now as to realise the injustice and prejudice that Alan Turing suffered.
Well, thank you so much for bringing this to light.
My
Again,
pleasure.
amazing performance.
Thank
Congratulations,
you so much.
Benedict. And this is Scott Orlin. Until next time.
Thank you.